first. Got a little coffee. Hello, welcome to Rooted in the Word, where we get rooted in the Word. If you're just joining us, we are following along on the reading plan. I will link that in the description for you. I am inviting you to join us. You don't have to worry about the dates. Just follow the weeks and go back and watch my videos and start a discussion. This is week 16, and I wanted to focus on a man named Jairus. He's the one of the rulers of the synagogue who comes to Jesus and says, "My daughter is gravely ill, come heal her, please." And Jesus walks, with the crowd following him, walks with Jairus to his house, and on the way is when we have the woman with the problem of bleeding. So she's on her period basically for the past 12 years, which kind of sucks. She's the one who touches his garment and is healed immediately. Jesus stops, talks to her, and then continues on to Jairus' house and heals her daughter, or heals his daughter. Sorry. And what I wanted to focus on with this is zooming out, really. Because if you just read this passage, I know this is something I get myself into, is with all our modern Bibles, we have our little chapters and subheadings and verses. So we tend to look at the story of, as it says here, Jesus heals a woman and Jairus' daughter. So we see that as its own little story. And while the headings are great and they are helpful, sometimes it's a little distracting. So what I wanted to do is back up to the beginning of Mark. I know we're going into last week's reading a little bit, but it's my channel, I can do what I want. So back in chapter 1, Jesus arrives in Capernaum on the Sabbath, and he goes to synagogue. He enters the synagogue and he begins to teach in the synagogue. At this time, synagogue leaders had to approve of a person to teach in the synagogue. But it was normal for, if there was a traveling rabbi, to come and be a guest speaker, essentially. We are unsure if the synagogue asked Jesus if he wanted to teach, or if Jesus asked the synagogue if they would allow him to teach. Regardless, the leaders of the synagogue would have had to approve of him being a teacher on that specific day, which means Jairus very well could have been the one to approve it, or in the meeting of elders, essentially, one of the people to approve or deny allowing Jesus to speak. Jesus taught, and everyone was astonished with the authority of his teaching. And after finishing his sermon, essentially, there was a man with an unclean spirit who heckled him in the middle of the synagogue, saying, "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." Jesus basically said, "Shut up, be gone," and sent the spirit away. Jairus probably saw this. If he did not see this, then he was definitely in council meetings talking about it. Then after basically holding a TED talk, doing an exorcism, doing a little mic drop and leaving, he went to the surrounding region of Galilee, which is slightly to the north of Capernaum, and heals many there. So does this a little mic drop, leaves town. The people of Capernaum are perplexed, and they're definitely talking about it. Jesus leaves, he goes and heals people. He heals, or comes across a leper on his journey and heals him. Lepers were unclean. They had skin lesions all over themselves. Like, you could visibly tell this person's a leper. And they are ceremonially unclean for the Jews, and they also carry an infectious disease. So this leper, basically nobody will have anything to do with him. He's lucky to get table scraps or to steal food. Nobody wants to be around him at all. People will cross to the other side of the street to avoid him. And if anyone were to touch the leper, they themselves are ceremonially unclean and have to go through a whole process to be clean again, and they may contract leprosy because it is an infectious disease. So it's a big deal when, upon meeting the leper, Jesus touches him and heals him. By touching him, would have made himself unclean according to Jewish law, but Jesus will talk about that later. Then after all that, Jesus returns to Capernaum. There is a large crowd that is gathering because they heard Jesus returned. They know what happened in the synagogue a few days later, or a few days earlier. They know what happened in the synagogue with the man with the unclean spirit, and they heard about the teaching that he did. Capernaum at this time is estimated to have roughly 1,000 to 1,500 people in it. So it is kind of a small town, bigger than a lot of towns at the time, but still relatively small. It's feasible that you could theoretically know everybody. Jesus is holding a gathering, probably in Simon's house, from what I was reading here. And we know that there is at least enough people that nobody can come in. So the house is full, people are outside the house trying to listen, and we have the paralytic being carried by 4 men. There's too many people in the house to even get themselves inside in front of Jesus. So it is reasonable to assume that there's at least 100 people trying to see this. And if you stop and think about it, that's 10% of the population of Capernaum at the time. They go in, or they can't go in, so they go up to the roof, rip the roof off, and lower the paralytic down in front of Jesus. Jesus heals the guy. It says that the scribes were sitting there questioning in their hearts because Jesus didn't just heal the man. He said, "Your sins are forgiven." And he knew what they were thinking. How can a man forgive sin? Once again, it is quite possible that Jairus is there for that moment. He could have been one of the scribes. He's not specifically named. But once again, if he wasn't actually there, he definitely heard about it, and it was definitely talked about in council meetings, essentially. So from there, Jesus walks down to the seashore. The large crowd follows. This is where we call Levi from last week. In front of the whole crowd, he begins to teach again down by the sea on the Sabbath. Again, he enters the synagogue in Capernaum, and there is a man with a withered hand. And all of the scribes and Pharisees are watching Jesus to see what he does. So, me, just thinking, was the man with the withered hand planted there by the scribes and Pharisees? They found somebody with a very obvious ailment to bring to the synagogue to try to trap Jesus into healing him. Was the man with the withered hand a normal patron of the synagogue? Did he come weekly? Is this a normal thing for him? Or was the man with the withered hand somebody who heard about Jesus, heard about his healings, and specifically himself went to the synagogue to hopefully get himself healed? This is all speculation. It's just something we're thinking about. But anyways, so the synagogue leaders are watching to see what happens. They are trying to trap Jesus into doing a thing on the Sabbath because that goes against their customs. And Jesus does not disappoint them and does heal the man on the Sabbath. Stating, "Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do harm, to save a life or to kill?" And then After that, the Pharisees immediately hold a council meeting with the Herodians, which are the people who are loyal to King Herod, which the Pharisees normally do not get along with the Herodians because they see Herod as a puppet king ruled by Rome. So it's all, they do not like each other. But the enemy of my enemy is my friend, is how they see it. So they work together because the Pharisees can't legally do anything about Jesus as far as getting him in prison, or ultimately, if you know the end of the story, he gets executed on the cross. But the Herodians have legal authority to do things as such. Then Jesus, after healing the man with the withered hand, Jesus goes back down by the Sea of Galilee. I believe this is the one where he's in the boat talking to the crowd amongst the shore, preaching some more parables here. After preaching all the parables, he tells his disciples, let's go to the other side of the sea. They travel across the Sea of Galilee. There, it does say, and other boats were with him, so some of the crowd did follow him. And this journey would normally take about 2 hours in their little sailboats, or fishing boats, I guess, to cross the sea. Then there is a storm, and keep in mind, multiple of Jesus's disciples are fishermen who have been fishing the Sea of Galilee for years. So they are experienced in seafaring here on this specific body of water. But this storm apparently is rough enough that they think they're going to die. Jesus is taking a nap on the boat, and he's woken up, not by the storm, but by his disciples, saying, wake up, we're going to die, basically. Jesus rebuked the wind and said, peace be still. Why are you afraid? Have you still no faith? The storm calms. They continue on their way. They get to the other side, which is in the country of the Gerasenes. And this is where Jesus comes into contact with the demon-possessed man. This demon-possessed man comes out of the tombs, which for the Jews, once again, is an unclean thing. Jewish people aren't allowed to touch bodies. So for the man to come out of the tombs, which this man lived in the tombs, is a big deal for the Jews, at least. But this man is basically a classic picture of a demonic possession. So in your head, just think the last scary movie you watched where someone was demonically possessed. He's probably got discolored skin. He's most likely running around naked or with very little clothes on. He's probably twitching. His voice sounds weird. He's unnaturally strong. It says that he has been bound with chains, but he keeps breaking the chains and shattering the shackles. And no one had the strength to subdue him anymore. And he was always crying out and cutting himself with stones. But this man, upon seeing Jesus, ran up to him, and he cried out with a loud voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you, by God, do not torment me." So he, or the demons, recognized Jesus immediately. They knew who he was, and they proclaimed that he was the Son of the Most High God. Jesus asks, what's your name? And the demon says, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And then the demons begged Jesus earnestly not to send him out of the country, which I thought was a little odd. So kind of looked into that a little bit. Some resources were saying that it is believed that demons have specific locations that are under their control, so they're tied to regions. so that these demons didn't want to basically leave their post, essentially. Other resources were kind of saying that they were alluding to the lake of fire. They didn't want to get cast into the lake of fire before the due time, which is in Revelation when Jesus comes back. Regardless, they didn't want to have to leave. So they begged Jesus earnestly to be sent into the pigs that were nearby. So Jesus sends legion into the pigs. There's about 2,000 pigs nearby. Casts out the demons that go into the pigs. The pigs run down the hill and drown themselves in the sea. One last hurrah from the demons, basically, to try to cause pain for the people. But there are the herdsmen who were minding the pigs, saw this and fled towards town, and that is how we know this is not a Jewish community, because pigs are, once again, unclean to the Jews. So they would have no herdsmen herding pigs. So we know we are in the Hellenistic area, so the Greek area here. The herdsmen go tell what happened. They come back. They see that the man who was demon possessed, which they all would have known to steer clear of this man, because many people tried to subdue him and no one could. But they saw the demon possessed man sitting there clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. And the townspeople begged Jesus to leave because they are afraid. But the man who was demon possessed begged Jesus to take him with him so that he could follow Jesus. But Jesus said, no, go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you. And he sent the man away into the Decapolis to proclaim all the good news that Jesus has done for him. The Decapolis is a league of 10 cities in the Hellenistic area here. This is considered the heart of Greek culture at the time. They're independent city-states that all kind of work together, but they are aligned with the Roman Empire, but not under direct rule of the Roman Empire. So then, after popping over to the east side of the Sea of Galilee and healing the demon-possessed man, Jesus hops back over and comes to Capernaum again, and there's a large crowd. So they possibly heard news of what happened on the east side. News might not have gotten there yet, but there is a large crowd because there was a lot of talk about this man named Jesus healing people in the area. So there's a large crowd, and in the crowd is the man Jairus. That brings us back to Jairus here. So he, like I said, was one of the rulers of the synagogue. So he is privy to everything that happened. He saw some of it, at least. He probably saw all of it. And at this point in time, his daughter's very sick, and he's got a choice to make here. He can choose to put his trust in the synagogue with the Pharisees, or he can put his trust in this man named Jesus, who has spoken with authority about Jewish law and everything, who has proven to heal people when they were sick and to be able to cast out demons and all the other miracles that they have seen. He chose Jesus. So he implores Jesus to come. He says, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her so that she may be made well and live." And Jesus went with him. The crowd naturally followed Jesus to see what was going on. So Jairus is a well-respected man in the community. He would have been seen as noble, and Jesus is on his way to Jairus' house. But in the middle of all of this is the woman with the problem of bleeding. In her mind, she says, if only I could touch the hem of his garment. So she tries to sneak through the crowd and touch the hem of his garment. Now, with her condition of having a discharge for 12 years, so she's on her period for 12 years, her life would have been marginally better than the leper from earlier. She is considered unclean. For the past 12 years or so, her family would not have talked to her. Any friends she had would have disowned her. They would have seen her condition as a punishment from God for something that she did. She couldn't hold like a regular job. She probably was able to do some odd jobs, cleaning things, maybe making some trinkets and selling them, doing people's laundry, whatever. But they would have just been odd jobs as they came, and if anybody found out what her condition was, they would have immediately cut ties and been like, we're not working with you anymore. Her only saving grace there would have been that, unlike the leper, you couldn't just look at her and tell she had a condition. Her going up and touching Jesus's garment, Jesus immediately recognizes that it says that power had left him and healed her. So he stops the crowd and says, "Who touched my garments? Who touched me?" He turns and sees her. She is terrified at this point because by her intentionally touching him, under Jewish law, that would have been essentially seen as assault, because she just made him unclean according to Jewish law. So she's expecting wrath and punishment, but Jesus says, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." And this whole time, Jairus is probably like, "What are you doing, Jesus? I need you to keep going. Stop dealing with her. We can deal with her later. Hurry up, my daughter's dying." Doesn't say that's what he is thinking, but I'm sure if I was Jairus, that would be what I was thinking. Would be, come on, let's go. We don't have time for this. Keep going. And while Jesus is dealing with the woman, people come from Jairus' house and say, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" So his heart sank. He probably fell to his knees immediately upon hearing this news. But Jesus overhears what just happened and says to Jairus, "Do not fear, only believe." And they enter the house, saw the commotion of everybody weeping. Jesus says to the crowd, or to everybody, basically, calm down, she's not dead but sleeping. Everybody laughed at him. And Jesus goes up to the daughter's room. He takes Peter, James, and John with him, and the parents, and charges everybody else to stay out. He says, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." And immediately she woke up and told everybody that was in the room not to say anything about what had happened, and to get the girl something to eat. She's hungry. They are overjoyed. Their little girl is back. Another fun little tidbit I found in there was specifically says the little girl was 12 years old, and that the woman had been bleeding for 12 years. So just speculation here, but I wouldn't be surprised if the woman's bleeding started on the little girl's birthday and stopped on the day of her resurrection. But I say all this to kind of weave the story and to implore you to try to take things in context. Like I said, the little subheadings and chapters and verses are helpful in finding things and have their place, for sure. But with that comes problems of seeing everything as their own little, this is this story, this is this story, this is this story. We have to remember it's all one big story. And I think that is part of how things get so easily taken out of context, and we get things that taken out of context and misused or misquoted. I had a lot of fun with this week, just kind of like zooming out and try to take this specific moment in context of everything that happened before. And I implore you to do the same thing in your own reading. Try to keep in mind the bigger story while we are zooming in on the small little parts. And I know with the reading plan, it does kind of lend itself, because we were just doing one chapter at a time, to kind of see those as little chunks. But that's where we can make use of the subheadings, and we can kind of just look back at the subheadings and be like, oh, this happened, this happened, this happened, and this and this. And then we're quickly caught up to where we are in the story, and then we can pick up and continue while still keeping the broader picture in mind. So that's kind of what I got this week. With that, I would love to hear what you guys got out of it. Leave some comments in the description, and I look forward to hearing from you. As always, have a good day, and love God, love people.